stunning, explosive. I don't know. The adjectives, adverbs, modifiers, they didn't even matter. Now that this new shocking video has emerged of what appears to be the sniper on the roof, and everybody can see the POV, the point of view of what the Secret Service and the President Trump would have had. Now do you see why sane people all across the world, not just America, are starting to be like, is there something more sinister going on here? Again, I'm a man of evidence. However, I'm not a man of stupidity either. What the hell is going on here? Is there going to be any version of this event that the Secret Service puts out in public that is going to be backed up by actual evidence at this point? I'll show you what I mean. I'll play you Director Rowe's testimony, and you'll see how what they would have seen at the site if they were looking around does not marry up with that at all. Hey, you've heard me rave about Beam's Dream Powder every week, so go get it. Stop delaying. This stuff changed my sleep habits. They're offering their largest discount at shopbeam.com/Bongino. Use code Bongino. Big show for you today, including, just quickly when we start off, this Russia prisoner swap thing. Ladies and gentlemen, my antenna went up on this. I'm glad to have our people home, period. However, there's still a lot of questions out there. You thinking some of the things I'm thinking? Hey, using the internet without ExpressVPN is like having a first aid kit, but not keeping it stocked up. What's the point? Most of the time you could be okay, but what if an actual emergency happens? How are you going to stop bleeding if you don't have the equipment in the first aid kit? Every time you connect to an unencrypted network, any hacker on the same network can gain access to your personal data. Doesn't take a lot of technical knowledge to do it either and to hack someone. Your data is really valuable. Hackers can make up to $1,000 per person selling personal info on the dark web. ExpressVPN creates a secure encrypted tunnel between your device and the internet, so hackers can't steal your sensitive data in between. It's super secure and easy to use. You just fire up the app, click a button, and get protected. And ExpressVPN works on all your devices so you can stay secure on the go. Folks, it's important to me to use ExpressVPN. You know why? It's nobody's business what I'm doing online. I've got contacts I'm dealing with. It's none of their business. It's nobody's business. Get ExpressVPN, secure online data today by visiting expressvpn.com/Bongino, EXPRESS, expressvpn.com/Bongino. You can get an extra 3 months free. expressvpn.com/Bongino. Right, fellas, let's go. First, just this Fox story happened this morning, broke right before we came on the air. Again, a fully dispositive, period, full stop statement. I'm very glad we got some of our people home. The reporter, Gerskovich, and Paul Whelan, good. I do not want American citizens imprisoned by tyrannical regimes overseas. However, the trade and the timing of the trade and who was given up for the trade matters, okay? It matters because it's a real story with real geopolitical implications, and it also incentivizes Russia to take future hostages if they're going to get asymmetrical deals. And the question I'm asking, which is a fair question we should all be asking, is why does Vladimir Putin seem so eager to help Joe Biden all the time? I'm glad our people are home. Everyone in the chat, correct? If it was my kid, I'd want to do anything. If it was my father, I'd want to do anything. But why was Vladimir Putin quiet about the Hunter Biden laptop? Why was Vladimir Putin quiet when he was falsely accused of colluding with Trump to steal an election? Why is he all of a sudden so eager to get a deal done in this hostage trade in an election season when these guys have been prisoners for a really long time? Folks, I'm sorry, but this stuff matters. The Biden administration has a history of malfeasance, foreign influence peddling, and other things. Are you as curious as I am about this? Show that Fox News story again. Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gerskovich, who, again, I'm glad he's home. Being released by Russia in a prisoner swap. Paul Whelan also free. They've been in prison for a long time. That's good. But ladies and gentlemen, the details matter. As I get the details, again, I'm a man of evidence. When I speculate, I'll tell you. And I'm also a man of evidence in this Secret Service case. And ladies and gentlemen, this thing is just this is beyond ugly at this point. You know, I came in this morning. Avita had another banger of a show. Thank you all for tuning in to Early Edition with Avita. And we're looking at each other like neither one of us are what you'd call, what the left uses as a sort of conspiracy theorists. Okay, none of us we talk. Let the facts guide you. It's okay to speculate, folks. I think we can all say, right, the chat, wouldn't you agree? I have been really hesitant to get ahead of this story because I'm not going to ruin my credibility. I'm not. I would rather lose 10 listeners who want me to make a light year leap and gain 100 who want the truth. That's a trade I'll make every day. But I'm not idiot either. What the hell is going on here? I'm going to do this in reverse a little bit. I should probably play the video first, but I'm not. I'm going to play the video. Just let me tee it up for you. That Fox News got a hold of is from one of the victims who was shot by Crooks, the assassin in the Trump assassination plot. One of the victims. So there's no one with more credibility on this than this guy. It's a cell phone video, and you can clearly see a figure running on the roof, setting up, and it appears to be the shooter. I don't know who else it would be. Now, here's the weird thing. Just a few days ago, the acting director, who, my gosh, I have warned you about, I can't warn you about any stronger terms. This guy will fix nothing. He is a cover-up artist. Just a few days ago, he gave an answer to Senator Gary Peters in the hearing. And I want you to listen to this. This is before that video surfaced, where you can now see the guy clear as day. And I want you to listen for a couple things. First, he acknowledges there was at least a 30-second window where they knew something was on the roof. There was more than that, but we had a minimum of 30 seconds. That's a long time to evacuate the president. He acknowledges that, quote, they had radios on the tactical net. So someone heard something. Then he says, this is the critical part I want you to listen for. Everyone here in the show, listen to, because I want you to hear this. The Secret Service director says, we knew they were working an issue at the 3 o'clock. Ladies and gentlemen, if the 3 o'clock is off the stage, then why was no one looking there as the guy was moving on the roof? Listen to this testimony. Tell me I'm crazy. Check this out.
Local law enforcement in Butler told my staff that they had no way of communicating directly with the Secret Service. And if I listened to Mr. Bates saying there was about 30 seconds between when the local law enforcement reported that there was a man on the roof with a gun, 30 seconds, if it's communicated directly to a counter sniper team, would that be enough time to react prior to the firing of those shots?
Senator, if we'd had that information, they would have been able to address it more quickly. It appears that that information was stuck or siloed in that state and local channel. I will tell you, though, that there were our tactical elements did have, not only did they have embeds from Butler County ESU with them, but they also had radios on the tactical net. It is troubling to me that we did not get that information as quickly as we should have. We didn't know that there was this incident going on, and the only thing we had was that locals were working an issue at the 3 o'clock, which would have been the former president's right-hand side, which is where the shot came. Nothing about man on the roof, nothing about man with a gun. None of that information ever made it over our net.
So that will change?
Yes, sir. We are working right now to figure out the interoperability and also make sure that we do have access to those channels, whether through the counterpart system or some other means.
So Herman in the chat says, Roe is lying. Certainly seems that way. Folks, can you explain to me? I'll play the video in a second, but it's important we dissect this first. Because he just told two directly conflicting stories under oath in the same, what is that, a minute and 22-second clip or something? He told two completely different stories. Let me quote. We had radios on the tactical net with embeds. Embeds, meaning our guys were embedded with the locals and locals were embedded with us. That's what embeds are. We were embedded with them. So I don't understand. We didn't get the info, but then he says we had radios on the tactical net. And then he said the information was siloed, but he said we knew they were working an issue at the 3 o'clock. Which freaking story is true, bro? Did you have embeds who had radios on the tactical net or not? You said you didn't get the info, and then you just said they were working an issue at the 3 o'clock. Folks, the clock system with the Secret Service is very simple. You look off the stage is the 12. Behind the stage is the 6. You got the 9 and the 3. It's not really difficult to figure out if they knew they were, quote, I'm just quoting Ron Rowe, folks. I'm not making this up. If they knew they were working an issue at the 3 o'clock, why did nobody look to the 3 o'clock? You just heard it. Look at the 3 o'clock. Then he says that they knew they were working an issue at the 3 o'clock, but they knew nothing about a man on the roof. He was at the 3 o'clock. Just look. I want to play the video. Then I want to do a deep dive on how many people either should have seen him, didn't see him, were there, or shamefully weren't there. And how, folks, again, was it? I ask you just to be guided by facts and evidence. The problem is nobody trusts these people anymore with the facts or evidence. Nobody. Nothing they're saying is true. After this video emerged, you should all be asking questions. You want to VO this? You think it's better, Guy? Okay, VO it, voice over it. Okay. Here's President Trump. Look at the figure on the roof, folks. Just keep playing it. Let it loop. Now you see him reappear again. Now, if you're watching, remember, the 12 o'clock is off the nose of the stage. Is the guy sitting up there like one of those gas station blow-up things waving? No. Folks, Rowe just acknowledged, though, that the locals had already said on the tactical net where they had embeds that they were, quote, working an issue at the 3 o'clock. If you're looking at the 3 o'clock, how the hell do you miss this? This is a cell phone camera. Guy went to school for film stuff. This is not a zoom high telephoto freaking lens used to film a Marvel movie. That's a cell phone. You can see the guy clear as day. How did they miss this? I don't know, brother. I don't know. He said, or did they? Folks, this video is stunning. It's just keep that still right there. How do you miss that, folks? This is a cell phone camera. It's not even focused. And you can still see a figure moving on the roof. This is completely disregarding the fact that 90 minutes in advance, someone had been notified within the tactical elements on the through text and otherwise, that there was a shadowy figure making furtive movements at the site. 90 minutes. What I don't understand, and I say this to people who have reached out to me, and you know who you are, who are still defending this, what is left to defend? You were told 90 minutes out. You were told 60 minutes out. You were told by text. You were told by radios on the tactical net. You were told probably by email, I would guess. The security room failed. The PI team failed. The CSU team failed. The poststanders failed. The shift failed. The DL failed. The locals. Nobody stopped. I don't understand. You're expecting people to believe the implausible because they can't believe the alternative that this much incompetence was displayed on the same day. I mean, look. You've got CS teams that are watching this. That's not the team actually that took them out, but that was a team, but they're right in front of the other team. If a cell phone can, sure enough, a high-powered scope. I mean, I don't know what those are, EOTech or whatever. I mean, how do you miss this? Like, don't spotters have this stuff? I mean, isn't that what's on the roof there? Folks, how did we miss this? Let me go through piece by piece here. How many people had to miss what was happening, despite, again, the director acknowledging that we knew they were working an issue at the 3 o'clock? Look to 3 o'clock. At every site, there's a PI team, folks. I've said this before, a protective intelligence team. Their only job is to go investigate threats. What the hell were they doing for 90 minutes? What were they doing? Was there a CSU team there? A counter surveillance team? Their entire job is to go and act in an undercover manner and detect threats. Were they even there? If not, why? Who denied the asset? If they were there, how did they miss this? Folks, you had 3 poststanders from the Secret Service and I believe 20 to 22 HSI poststanders. How did they miss this? You had the shift, the body men around President Trump. They're sitting there. There's usually a right and a left poststander at 12 o'clock right off the nose of the stage. You've seen them on both sides of the president, standing there like this with the glasses. How did they not see this? You had the DL and a shift supervisor there, the detail leader and a shift supervisor. Did anybody know this guy was on the roof? Folks, I'm sorry. This is just beyond the pale at this point. And then he says at the end, Ron Rowe, that they knew nothing about a man on the roof. You knew they were working an issue at 3 o'clock. It's up to you to say, you mean the guy on the roof? Folks, these are the questions you should be asking. That, again, journalists, Susan Crabtree's doing a good job, and Sean Davis and others, and Molly Hemingway. There are very few others asking the right questions. I'm giving you the questions. Get your pens out. What was the Protective Intelligence Secret Service team doing? Were they there? If not, that's an even worse problem. Why didn't you have a PI team? If you did, what the hell were they doing? Where was the counter surveillance team? How did the poststanders miss this? How did the shift miss it? This is just unforgivable. And I would not be surprised if texts were being deleted right now. They've got a history of doing this, and Roe was there when it happened, the January 6th text. And folks, the bad news just keeps on coming. I'm telling you, you think the Secret Service problems are over? They have just begun. It's a story that came out yesterday. It didn't make a lot of waves. It's a Jackie Heinrich tweet from Fox I'm going to get to in a minute. But you think President Trump's in a bad security situation now? Wait till you see what happens, what's coming up. Because nobody's reading deeper into this. They're only seeing the surface stuff. I'm here for the dig. I'll get you 6 feet deep on these stories, all right? Quick break. We'll get back to what I'm talking about. Hey, a lot of Americans are tired and frustrated by the stalling economy, inflation, endless wars, and the relentless assault on their values. Thankfully, there's companies like Patriot Mobile that still believe in America and our rights. I'm proud to partner with Patriot Mobile because they're on the front lines fighting for our rights, the sanctity of life, and our military, veteran, and first responder heroes. Take a stand for conservative causes and put America first by switching to Patriot Mobile today. You get the same coverage as the big providers because Patriot Mobile operates across all 3 major networks. Plus, they back their service with a coverage guarantee. Their 100% U.S.-based customer service team will find the best plan for your needs. Keep your number, keep your phone, or upgrade. Go to patriotmobile.com/Dan or call 972-PATRIOT. Right now, get a free month when you sign up and use the offer code Dan. Don't be fooled by other providers pretending to share your values or have the same coverage. They don't and they can't. Join me, join us. Switch to America's only Christian conservative mobile provider, Patriot Mobile. Go to patriotmobile.com/Dan or call 972-PATRIOT for your free month of service today. By the way, met the guy who runs the company at the RNC, and it's just really, really great for all of you out here for supporting Patriot Mobile. So thank you on their behalf. I really appreciate it. I know they do too. Getting back to the show. Folks, the mistakes right now are not explainable as simple mistakes. They're only explainable as a series of options. Number one, negligence so profound that it's borderline criminal. Second, malfeasance. Third, a combination of malfeasance and negligence, potentially criminal, depending on who you look at, if you get what I mean. There's no explaining this anymore. And nothing they say is ever true. Every story they've told has turned out to be inaccurate so far, at least the major details. Here's what I was talking about. Jackie Heinrich at Fox put this tweet out, and people are missing the bigger story. Fox News has learned the Biden administration is gaming out possible foreign travel for Biden's final months in office with an eye to his biggest foreign policy issues. You can read the rest of the tweet, but she talks about him traveling around the world, Africa, Middle East, elsewhere, doing all this stuff. Now, this got almost no attention, and it won't today, given the prisoner swap. The news cycle is just, I mean, you want to talk about drinking from a fire hose? This is the easiest time and easiest workload I have ever had under stressful conditions because you can put the show together in 5 minutes because there's just so much news. Why is this a big deal? This is really bad news for the Secret Service. I will say in advance that what Biden's doing in his last term in office, his last few months in office, is not unusual. For as much as I'd like to say Biden's doing something no one's ever done because he's an awful, terrible guy, which he is, by the way, period. Every president, go look at their travel schedule. Bush, Clinton, Obama, what they do in their last few months of office is they take a couple of foreign trips. You want to know why they're really doing it? This has nothing to do with their legacy or any of that bullshit. You know what's really going on? I was there. Don't tell me otherwise. I talked to staffers and everything. They want free trips around the world so they can get a bunch of pictures their grandkids will see later on of them in Red Square or them at the lost city of Petra. That's what they're doing it for. Trust me, I've been there. Yeah, they'll pretend it's about foreign policy stuff. Why an 81-year-old guy with a cognitive disorder wants to fly overseas in the last month of office? It has nothing to do with foreign policy stuff. They could come here. They just want to go touring the world on the taxpayer dime, on Air Force One, on a VIP trip. I promise you their families are going to be with them. Watch, you'll remember it now. You'll see the pictures. They all do it. Republicans, Democrats. It's not just a Biden thing. This is a taxpayer-funded big vacation so they can get pictures for the history books. They all do it. So what's the point? Folks, you think the Secret Service is effed now? For the first time in modern American history in a presidential election, they have a situation where a former president is running again against a president who then said he's not going to run, whose vice president's going to run, who's then got to pick another vice presidential nominee while the former president has a different nominee than his vice president last time. Try to follow for a second. They have 5 fully staffed protection details. Trump, Vance, Biden, Kamala's VP, whoever it is, Walls, Shapiro, doesn't matter. 5 people are leaving. Morale is garbage. The good agents who didn't screw this trip up are embarrassed and humiliated. You've got a director nobody likes who's sitting up there BSing Congress. Now you've got Joe Biden going overseas, taking a bunch of taxpayer-funded vacations over a 90-day period that are going to suck up enormous amounts of post standers. Those are Secret Service agents in the field office that fly overseas to support the mission. Let me give you a little hint. Those are post standers that can't be used for President Trump now. What are you going to do? Hire more people in 90 days? The hiring process is a year long. Forget about the training, which is a year long too. You're 2 years away at minimum from any serious help at this point. Biden going on a world tour right now? I'm asking him as a courtesy. Listen, I'm telling you all presidents do it. Please don't do this. The Secret Service is in a perilously bad situation right now. They don't want to say anything publicly, but this is going to, you think the manpower is, they are at a 9,000 RPM red line with an engine ready to explode right now. And they have no battle plan to fix this thing other than to kick the can down the road because it's been mismanaged for 20 years. Make changes now. There's no time left. I've been talking to a bunch of elected officials. It is time right now to get legislation for the president to sign to pull investigations out of the Secret Service and let the agents focus only on protection and protective intelligence investigations. They don't have to leave the field office. They don't. That's fine. There are threat cases all over the country. Can't have a guy fly to LA because someone threatened the president. He'll be gone by then. Please. It is your seconds matter. If you pull them out of investigations, they'll have the bodies to support this mission. If you don't, I'm going to tell you what the whistleblower in the counter surveillance, counter sniper section, the technician said. Someone else going to get killed or hurt. All right, I got a lot more to get to. You know what? I'll probably take a break now. Trump yesterday, folks, again, with Trump, there are so many people who just cannot figure this guy out. It's stunning. They want to pick up these sound bites and act like look at this, they're damning. It's going to be the end of Trump. If I had a freaking cookie for every time someone told me it was the end of Donald Trump because of a soundbite after an appearance yesterday and a couple things that happened, I'd be 350 pounds of lard. Surely, yes, he said it right. Good luck. He said, surely this time it's definitely over. We got him now. I've heard it 1,000 times. Ladies and gentlemen, you don't understand. Trump says what everybody's thinking. He doesn't do focus group tested stuff. And the only people who believe it's a negative are people who've been listening to focus groups and losing for the last 20, 30 years. I'm not telling you we can't say things better. Everybody can. I'm just telling you, if you think this is the end, you don't know Trump. I promise. Quick break. I'll show you what I mean. Hey, student loan forgiveness handouts, free everything, right? Seems like everyone's getting a free pass, except you working for a living. You've been an honest tax-paying citizen for like ever. But when COVID and tough times happened, you fell behind with unfiled tax returns. Instead of forgiveness, the IRS is hiring thousands of new enforcement agents to come after you. But listen, it's risky to call the IRS yourself. You need Tax Network USA. Their aggressive strategies are designed to help solve your IRS problems quickly and in your favor. They have preferred direct lines to the IRS. They know which agents to work with and which to avoid. Tax Network USA specializes in helping to reduce or eliminate your tax debt. They've helped resolve over $1 billion in tax debts for their clients. Some of these tax solutions expire, so you don't want to wait on this. Tax Network USA is owned by fellow patriots, and they're giving you a free consultation. Call 1-800-245-6000. That's 1-800-245-6000, or visit tnusa.com/Dan. That's TN, short for Tax Network, tnusa.com/Dan. Thanks, Tax Network USA. And finally, Windshield Wow. Folks, they've been with me a while. You know, I live down here in Florida. It rains a lot. Your windshield gets really dirty all the time. You can't see through it. And then you get the sunshine state glare and you can't see anything. It creates a dangerous situation. But it's really hard to clean your windshields on the inside, especially me, because I got bad elbows and shoulders and knees and everything else. So that's when Windshield Wow sent a product over. They said, hey, we'd be interested in sponsoring your show. I was like, let me try this out. It works. It's an ingenious windshield cleaning device. 2 magnetic cleaning paddles. Really strong. You just have to clean on the outside. The inside paddle just tracks with you. Gets in all those nooks and crannies, cleans both sides, all from the outside. You just push around the paddle on the outside. The inside follows, cleans it automatically. It's that simple. Cleanest my windshield's been in a long time. The Windshield Wow applies firm cleaning pressure for you, and it's super thin, getting in those tight areas. I need my windshields clean. I got one for every one of my cars because it's dangerous. Not only you want your car to look better, but you don't want to be in a dangerous situation. We were really impressed with it. Pick one up today. Go to windshieldwow.com. Get this ingenious cleaning device now. It really works. Windshieldwow.com. Windshieldwow.com. Use Bongino at checkout for a special discount. That's windshieldwow.com. Thank you, Windshield Wow. We appreciate it. All right, back to the show. Folks, you got to understand Donald Trump. Again, it's not mandatory in a constitutional republic that you like any candidate. It is your big R God-given right to speak up, to speak out, to assemble, to petition. That is your right. It's your right to vote for who you like. We have a secret ballot, okay? However, it's also your right to be stupid. If you choose voluntarily to not understand Trump, as either a swampy Republican or a Democrat, you're going to continue to get your ass kicked by him. I'm not trying to give our enemies a tactical advantage. I'm just telling you so you don't get upset that, again, all the fake drama around J.D. Vance and Donald Trump is fake. It's AstroTurf. It's not real, okay? You know me. I've been honest about the election. I don't get into red wave talk. I don't think it's going to be a landslide. I think we got a good shot. But I'm telling you what the left is telling you now. We got Trump this time. We got Trump this time. They don't have him. Trump yesterday went and sat down with the National Association of Black Journalists in about a 45-minute interview that blew up. The gaslighting started immediately. Here's Sophie Kai on Twitter. I guess a Trump hater. I don't really know. Trump agreed to sit for an hour-long interview. His team cut it off at 34 minutes. An indication of how much of a train wreck it was for him and how good the questioning was. Really? That's interesting because everybody at the site knew, because Trump tweeted out in advance or put out on True Social, that he didn't cut it short. He'd been waiting for over a half an hour. The equipment at the National Association of Black Journalists wasn't working properly. Don't blame me for being late. So again, what do I always tell you about the left-wingers? Do you remember? How do we know a story is damaging to them and not to us? Do you guys know in the chat? Always watch the left-wing response. When they're losing their minds over something, it means we won and they lost. So if this what happened yesterday, and I'll get to the sound clips in a second, was such a big success for the lefties, then why is Elie Mystal, the lunatic who does some MSNBC commentary, a liberal communist, why is he freaking out? Well, National Association of Black Journalists leadership, here's the attention you requested. Hope it was worth debasing all of us for you to get it. Congratulations on your success. I'm going to ask you again, if what the media is telling you, Trump, he embarrassed himself, he's done, he's finished, horrible appearance, is so true, then why is Elie Mystal so upset about it? And why is Sophie Kai lying about it? Don't get suckered into these vortexes of misinformation. Follow your buddy Dan, and I'll tell you when we're in trouble. What happened yesterday puts Trump in absolutely no danger whatsoever. This is the comment that went nuclear. Here's Donald Trump talking about Kamala Harris. I want you to remember something. Before I even play this, folks in the chat, what are the most destructive political narratives in politics? Thank you. Narratives that change your pre-existing notion of who a candidate is. Kamala Harris is running as this, straight-laced prosecutor now because she knows it's the only thing that can save her from her terrible liberal image on the border. She's running as a straight-edge prosecutor who put the bad guys in jail. You don't take my word for it. Go look at her campaign ads. A lot of suckers are going to believe this. What is really destructive to that narrative? That not only is she not a straight edge, she is a liar and a fraud, and she will say anything to anyone. She's not only not being straight with people, she's a flip-flopper. People are getting lost in the racial component of this. Don't. Trump's making a different point. The race hustlers want to make it a racial issue. Listen to this. You'll see what I mean.
I've known her a long time indirectly, not directly very much. And she was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she black?
She has always identified as a black woman. She went to a historically black college.
I respect either one, but she obviously doesn't, because she was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn, and she became a black person.
Just to be clear, sir, do you believe
I think somebody should look into that too when you continue in a very hostile, nasty tone.
You are entirely missing the point again. And if you think I'm one of these people that reflexively defends stuff so we lose an election and I'm going to hide a damaging incident, you are listening to the wrong show. I have said to you repeatedly when I think things hurt and sting a little bit. You are reading this thing all wrong again, and I'm sure I'll be proven right. Trump is not making a racial point. He's using Kamala Harris's take on her own race to make a different point. That, again, liberals continue to miss. The same liberals who keep getting their asses kicked by Trump and wondering why. You all right, Justin? You look like you have something to say for the show. Okay, Justin, look, he's just walking on the set here like he's got something to say for the show. He thinks it's like a handoff, like Walter Payton taking a handoff for the game. He's making the point that Kamala Harris will say anything to anyone to get a vote. Could he have said it differently? Of course. Is everything come out like Shakespearean prose? No. But the sane people out there get what he's saying. No one believes Trump's a racist. No, you can keep saying it. Nobody believes it. It's not real. It's fake. He's making the point that Kamala Harris will say anything to anyone. I'm not going to play the stuff Kamala Harris saying she's Indian or black. I don't care what she doesn't matter to me. The point is, Kamala Harris has a documented history of saying anything to anyone to get elected. Defund the police. Don't defund the police. I hate fracking. We love fracking. We love union workers. Well, government jobs, not so much. She'll say anything. That was the point. And Trump, as always, is completely 100% misjudged and underestimated by his opponents. Jeremy Carl here, by the way, I don't really know, but he makes a great point here on X as well. Trump goes out and talks to hostile audiences. He'll talk to anyone, anywhere. He doesn't need a focus group. He doesn't need cue cards. He'll talk to anyone, and people respect it. I'm not saying any politician can get away with what Trump does. They couldn't. I'm telling you right now. Don't try to replicate his strategy because it's not going to work. But do you think Kamala Harris, do you really believe this? You know, it's preposterous to even think of. But can you imagine Kamala Harris subjecting herself to an extended interview from conservative journalists in a way like that Trump is doing to these liberal black journalists? I'm going to put an offer out there. Folks from the Bongito Army, I need a favor. Go on X, tag the Kamala Harris account. Cut this clip if you have to. I am promising her, on my honor, a fair interview. I will not interrupt her. I'll even give them the questions in advance. I'll give them 10. They can pick 5. How about that? If Kamala Harris is willing to come on my radio show and do just an 18-minute interview or so, I will let them pick. I'll post 10 questions. They can pick 5. I guarantee you she won't do it. Trump does it all the time. Trump goes anywhere. Urban radio, country radio, National Association of Black Journalists, South Bronx. Where's Kamala Harris going? She won't do it. So let me say, Trump's the bad guy because he talks to people who would be his natural ideological opposition, a group of journalists, black or otherwise, who don't like him. And what? He's the one to be pilloried because he said the truth? Kamala Harris has said multiple times different things to different people, depending on where she thinks she can get power from. Of course, this thing was a big W. Anyone telling you otherwise is full of shit. That's why Ellie Mistel's flipping out. Here was Trump yesterday. Here's how the thing opens up. The lady goes after him right away. Question number 1, after delaying the guy for a half an hour and then blaming him for their delays, which, by the way, no one even knows if that was intentional or not yet. I don't trust journalists at all. Here's Donald Trump just absolutely wrecking these journalists. Check this out.
I won the case, and it got very little publicity. I didn't notice ABC doing any publicity on it, George.
We cover you extensively, sir. I'd love to move over on to different topics.
I didn't notice you do any publicity on it at all. I won the case, the biggest case. This is an attack on a political opponent. I have another one where I have a hostile judge.
We have you for a limited time, sir. I'd love to move on to different topics.
No, excuse me. You're the one that held me up for 35 minutes, just so you understand.
You understand how this stuff, the American people generally hate journalists because they're liars. Just go out and look at any public survey on what even Democrats think. There's a substantial swath of Democrats that don't like journalists. They see Trump as the hero in this. It's amazing how many people think this was a net negative for him yesterday. They don't understand at all how he came out of this with a triple W. Here's one more clip, and I want to get to something else. And our best asset right now is Kamala, who's a total fake and a phony. He absolutely crushes this race-baiting journalist trying to, again, falsely defame this guy as a racist. She has no evidence of that at all. Donald Trump has shown nothing but a history of being kind to people of all racial and ethnic groups. They're just making this up. No one ever said this in the past when he wasn't a Republican. They made it up. And no, he doesn't have to take it. This is exactly how you deal with these buffoons. Watch this.
You have used words like animal and rabbit to describe black district attorneys. You've attacked black journalists, calling them a loser, saying the questions that they ask are, quote, stupid and racist. You've had dinner with a white supremacist at your Mar-a-Lago resort. So my question, sir, now that you are asking black supporters to vote for you, why should black voters trust you after you have used language like that?
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever been asked a question so in such a horrible manner. First question. You don't even say, hello, how are you? Are you with ABC? Because I think they're a fake news network, a terrible network. And I think it's disgraceful that I came here in good spirit. I love the black population of this country. I've done so much for the black population of this country.
That is exactly how you deal with these people. Folks, the woman was not asking a question. So Donald Trump has no obligation whatsoever to answer her non-question. If she is going to make a political statement, then Donald Trump has every single moral and ethical right to respond with a statement of his own. That was not a question. It had a question mark at the end, but it was a declarative statement. I think you're a racist, and here's why. None of that's any evidence whatsoever of him being a racist. Again, people make mistakes and do things. I'm sure he wished he could take a lot of his stuff back. There is zero evidence whatsoever any of those false defamatory statements she made are actually a basis for a racism charge. She's just making it up. Nobody paddles right back pickleball style than Donald Trump. And folks, listen to me. Our best asset right now is Kamala. You think that comment yesterday about race and everything is going to damage Trump? I'm telling you, you're reading this all wrong. You can say all you want, racist, right? You've said it so many times, no one's listening. That's not the point he was making. He was making the point that this woman is a total phony. She goes in front of liberal groups and she's a straight up communist. She goes in front of middle class union workers and she pretends to be a moderate Democrat. Does she not realize that X and Rumble and YouTube and Truth and Facebook, these clips live on forever? She just said this stuff, ladies and gentlemen, a few years ago. Not in the halcyon days of 1964. Here she was just a few years ago in this short clip. Because she's such an environmental lunatic. One of these Green New Deal cow farting people. Here she is implying that young people shouldn't have children. This is how crazy this woman is. She's our best asset. Her. Watch.
I've heard young leaders talk with me about a term they've coined called climate anxiety. Period. Right? Which is fear of the future and the unknown, of whether it makes sense for you to even think about having children, whether it makes
are you justifying the end of the human race over faux climate anxiety and fake apocalyptic predictions about the end of the earth that your left-wing lunatic friends have told you? You know, there's an amazing piece. I got to pull this for tomorrow. It's in the Wall Street Journal today. I think it's by Beyond Lumbor. It's in their opinion section. Forgive me, I should have brought it up on the show. The piece is about every single environmental prediction that's been made in the last few years about the apocalypse, how 100% fake it is. Instead of Kamala Harris saying, listen, we have a responsibility, a God-given responsibility to take care of the home he gave us. And we do. Folks, I'm very concerned about things like plastics in the ocean, contaminants in our soil. Very concerned. I live here. So do my kids. You challenge me on that all you want. I'm going to call you full of shit because you are. And I'll bury it right back in your face. My home matters to me too. I live here. The water quality in Florida matters to me a lot. I live near it. No one wants nasty brown water in front of their house. Republicans are environmentalists too. We're just not crazy. The human race comes first. This article in the Journal is incredible. You've been told the polar bears are dying. There's actually a record number of polar bears. You've been told the Tuvalu Islands are sinking. They're getting bigger. Nothing they're telling you is true. And now she gives credence to the idea that we should wipe out the human race and not have kids because of your crazy lunatic predictions that are all fake, by the way. It's all bullshit. Here's AP, of course, covering for a bunch of communists of the Associated Press. Kamala Harris is calibrating her policy pitch for going to battle with Trump. Notice, when Trump or J.D. Vance changes their position on something, because politicians do it, it's not just Democrats, people change, people mature, People take in new inputs and produce new outputs. Everyone does it. The difference with Kamala Harris is not that she's changed her position, in contrast to, say, JD or Trump. The difference with Kamala Harris is she changes every position. Nothing she says is sincere. So the AP will call a Republican a flip-flopper, but to Kamala Harris, she's just calibrating. Folks, the interference in this election. It's a headline, right? You think I'm making it up? Kamala Harris calibrating her policy pitch. The election interference is in high speed right now. It is in sixth gear in a, Z06 Corvette. And good for J.D. Vance, who's now on the ground running. I think they got bombarded with a lot of liberal media BS. It happens. He plowed through it. The Trump team is happy with him. I'm happy with J.D. Vance. He was on my radio show yesterday. I wanted to play this, though, first. This is the message we need. This is clear. It's the script. You've got Kamala Harris, the open borders are on one hand, now faking it as some kind of prosecutor. And you've got J.D. and Donald Trump with a message like this on illegal immigration. Clear, to script, to the point. Listen.
To all illegal aliens, President Trump and I have a different message. If you are here against the laws of this country, pack your bags because you're going home in 6 months.
Let Kamala Harris flip-flop, dive, duck, jump on both sides of every issue line. Let her do that while our message is clear as day. To J.D. Vance and Donald Trump, yes, please keep this up. Do not stop. Your taxes, I want them lower. Social Security, you shouldn't pay taxes on it. Why should you pay taxes on Social Security? You already paid taxes on Social Security. How do you think you got Social Security? You know what? A lot of people don't like the no tax on tips. Anytime there's no tax for anyone, I like it. Keep the message clear. Let these other two bounce all over the place. I had J.D. Vance on my radio show yesterday. I'll play the full interview on the weekend Sunday show on the Rumble channel here if you want to listen to it. It was good. Folks, I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to share something with you here. You know, I had a moment on the air with JD yesterday. And, you know, I'm an emotional guy. I don't pretend not to be. I'm kind of a big wuss with stuff like that. Don't let my 6 foot, 200-pound frame fool you. I'm like a big teddy bear. I am. Don't let the foul language distract you either. I really do care about people, and I care about you. But to all the people out there struggling with substance abuse, I haven't really discussed this publicly, but I went through this for years with my mom. I never said who, but a lot of you put two and two together. And it's the most painful thing. I tell everyone who's got an issue with substance abuse, whether it's alcohol or drugs or pills or whatever it is, you'll always have a home here. I know there's a good person in there. I understand that. These chemicals, they do things to you, man. They poison that person. God gave you this soul, and they just dissolve little pieces of it, chunks of it day by day, and there's almost nothing left, but there's always going to be something there to pull out. But I watched JD's movie based on his book, Hillbilly Elegy, about his life story. And his mom has been sober and clean for 10 years, his mom Bev, and thank the Lord for that. My mother died before I had that moment, not long ago. And the movie was hard for me to watch. And for all of you out there, not you in my listening audience, but for you establishment, fake, swampy Republicans, especially the woman out there who is behind the attacks on J.D. Vance, and you know who you are, by the way, and I do too. You're really horrible people. This is a guy who's been through a lot. I want you to listen to his answer when I address this drug crisis and how much it means to him, having a mother who had a substance abuse problem most of her adult life and almost died. This is the real J.D. Vance. Don't buy into the liberal bullshit. This is the real J.D. Vance. Listen to this answer. This isn't some focus group bullshit. Check this out. We have a fentanyl crisis at our southern border right now. Kids are being killed. They're being murdered by this poison. That's got to feel a lot different to a guy like you that stared addiction and the soul death, the slow killing of a person's soul from it. That's got to mean something different to you.
Yeah, it does, Dan. I'm sorry to hear about your mom, man. I had no idea.
Thanks, brother.
What happened, and it's terrible, and it happens way too much in this country. And if I can put a personal, spin on this, I mean, you're right that things worked out for my mom, and in some ways you have this almost guilty feeling over it, because when it works out for your family and it doesn't work out for somebody else's, you wonder, why do we get lucky and why did others not? And the thing that I try to remind myself is the fentanyl deprives people of second chances to overcome the addiction once and for all and be good moms and dads to their kids. And the way we should think about this fentanyl is it's depriving American families of second chances. When you've got fentanyl in your streets instead of some of the stuff that existed 15 years ago, sometimes those people are never going to get a chance to get back on the horse. And we have to think about the orphan children and the grandchildren and the grandparents who are taking care of those grandchildren whose lives have been destroyed because Kamala Harris won't do her job and keep this country safe. And I get so frustrated at it, man, because, yeah, it did work out for my family, but it hasn't worked out for hundreds of thousands of American families over the last few years, and that's something we've got to change.
Folks, that sound like you got that answer from a focus group? Nah. That's a real man there. It's a man who understands what poverty's like. It's a man who understands what pain and suffering is like. That's a man who's looked into the eyes of people he loves and watched them just disintegrate and try to rescue them, and he knows that pain. You're not obligated to vote for anyone. You're not obligated to believe everything they believe at all. But you're morally obligated to at least give this guy a shot and hear him out. This is a good man. We don't agree on everything. We don't. But you give me a good guy, I agree with 80% of the time, over a shithead that I can't trust 100% of the time. It's powerful stuff. All right, I wanted to play this for you too, folks. I want to wrap up the show where I began. This Secret Service scandal is only going to continue to metastasize. Nobody, folks in the chat, does anybody trust the government to manage this investigation into the murder of Corey Comparator and the shooting of 3 others, including Donald Trump? Nobody trusts you. And folks, here's one of the reasons why. Did you see this clip by Merrick Garland? This guy, again, they say things on television. He's talking to Ken Dilanian, which is hilarious. Fusion Ken Dilanian, deep state fake journalist. He's talking about the dismissal of the special counsel in the Jack Smith case because Jack Smith was appointed unconstitutionally. Jack Smith was not Senate confirmed, period. That is it. It's unconstitutional. No sane person fails to understand this, except for Merrick Garland, who gives an interview and just lies the entire time. I'm going to debunk all of this on what happened. Check this out.
Judge Eileen Cannon ruled that the way the Justice Department has been picking special counsels for decades is illegal, unconstitutional. Why do you disagree with that?
Look, as you well know, I picked this room for this interview. This is my favorite room in the Justice Department. It's a law library. For more than 20 years, I was a federal judge. Do I look like somebody who would make that basic mistake about the law? I don't think so. Our position is that it's constitutional and valid. That's why we appealed. I will say that this is the same process of appointing special counsel as was followed in the previous administration and the special counsel Durham and special counsel Mueller in multiple special counsels over the decades going back to Watergate and the special prosecutor in that case.
Folks, he's lying. There's the muskrat. Thank you, guys. He is lying. And the worst part about it, he goes, do you think, the big muskrat. Every time he lies, we should expand the muskrat even worse. He's a liar. He thinks you can't just go and look this up. And then he goes, what do you think? I'm stupid? I'm in a law library. You are stupid. Bob Mueller was Senate confirmed as the FBI director. John Durham was Senate confirmed as an AUSA. Assistant United States Attorney at USA. Jack Smith wasn't. He just thinks you're dumb. Go look it up, what I just told you. Then he brings up the whole Watergate thing. That was the independent counsel statute, not special counsel. Notice how he expects you to mix it up? The guy is a liar. You think if they uncover a big, pernicious, despicable scandal at the Secret Service and FBI with this, that they're going to release it to the public? Get the hell out of here. They're going to bury this thing. Congress, stay on top of it. This guy is totally full of crap. Nobody trusts these people. Look at the chat. Nobody trusts you. You burned it. All right, folks, thanks again for tuning in. I hope you're checking.
Tucker Carlson tonight. The main thing that we learned on last Friday night, with the release of those previously undisclosed documents from Twitter, is not that social media companies censor conservatives. Obviously, we knew that. No one's surprised to have it confirmed. No one denied it in the first place. No, what we learned on Friday is that big tech works aggressively and in secret with government agencies to subvert the outcome of what the rest of us assumed were free and fair elections. During the 2020 election, Twitter did this with the help of the FBI, committing censorship on behalf of one candidate while working to hurt the other candidate. It is hard to imagine a more brazen attack on our democracy than this. This is not how our system is supposed to work. In fact, it's illegal. What Twitter did is a violation of the First Amendment, as well as of established campaign finance law. They never declared those contributions to the Biden campaign. That's a crime. Thanks to the reporting of Matt Taibbi, who received access to these documents from Twitter's new owner, Elon Musk, we know that this happened. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's a fact. But you wouldn't know it happened if you got your news from legacy media outlets in the U.S. In the days since Taibbi's jaw-dropping scoops, none of them have followed up on the story. Instead, they've dismissed the story as entirely normal. Of course the FBI was working secretly with Twitter and the Biden campaign to control your brain by limiting your access to factual information. That's how elections work. Or they're attacking Matt Taibbi personally for daring to write the story. So the same people who've spent weeks defending billionaire con artist Sam Bankman-Fried, who as of tonight you'll be happy to know was still in the Bahamas, unindicted, those same people are telling you that the real criminal here is the guy who's uncovering illegal censorship in a presidential campaign. It's hard to believe they're saying that. Oh, but they are. Here's a selection.
Elon Musk retweeted the quote-unquote Twitter files, a collection of documents that detail how the social media platform supposedly buried a story about a Ukrainian energy company paying money to the president's son, Hunter Biden. First of all, I just have to say that this whole thing is just ridiculous and it's not true.
It was amazing to me that all of these sort of Fox News or whoever else jumped on this without ever fully understanding that it was basically meaningless what happened. And it actually turned out to be a good thing.
Musk seems fixated on a 2-year-old story about Hunter Biden's laptop.
This is what we in the cable business like to call a hot take. And it reveals Elon Musk's profound ignorance of the First Amendment.
We now know it was a really helpful thing, actually, the Twitter files today, because we got to see how content moderation works. We got to see how when a group of people with differing political ideas and ideologies and views gets together in the spirit of making a platform safe and healthy.
There's just so much there. Al Sharpton teaming up with the former George W. Bush aide to tell you censorship is good. The First Lady saying, this Ukrainian company allegedly paid Hunter Biden, when there's no allegedly about it. Everyone involved has already admitted it. And then best of all, Ali Velshi, we in the cable business. Ali Velshi has never been in the news business. People in the news business cover the news. Propagandists censor and distort the news. And that's what you're watching there. Thankfully, as always, their propaganda is crude and not very effective, mostly because it's so unbelievably not believable. Censorship, explains Brandy Zadrozny like a slightly annoyed kindergarten teacher, censorship is called content moderation. When we hide facts from you that you need in order to cast an informed vote in a presidential election, that's, quote, safe and healthy. Hiding facts from you is safe and healthy. Is there anyone who actually believes that? Well, judging by NBC's tanking ratings, not many people actually do believe that, but they're saying it anyway. Here's Michael Steele of MSNBC, the former RNC chairman, by the way, letting you know that actually revealing the mechanics of censorship is itself an attack on free speech.
Putting those things back on the platform, juxtaposition with the argument that he's all about free speech, really undermines some of the central tenets of free speech. Is that it is about, yes, the freedom of you to say things, but not at the harm or expense of someone else. And so when you're perpetuating lies and so forth, you're really kind of laughing in the face of this idea of what the platform he claims is supposed to be.
So any day you get to see Michael Steele misuse the words juxtaposition, obviously it's a good day. But the payoff really was his little lecture on constitutional law. The essential tenet of free speech, Michael Steele just told you, the essential tenet is that you as an American citizen are never allowed to say things that other people object to. Okay, Michael Steele. If you get a chance, let us know what Constitution you've been reading. The one that we have here in the U.S. is pretty clear. In the United States, you get to say as an American citizen what you believe, period. And under no circumstances ever may the government infringe on that right, period. Again, that's the First Amendment. And thanks to the Twitter files revealed on Friday night, we know the First Amendment has been violated more profoundly than at any time in our lives. Miranda Devine of the New York Post has just reported that the FBI met, quote, weekly with Twitter executives in the months before the 2020 election. And in those meetings, the FBI specifically warned about hack and leak operations by state actors that would involve Hunter Biden and would, quote, likely come out in October. Oh, we know that because it appeared in a sworn deposition from Twitter's former chief censor, Yoel Roth, signed in 2020. It wasn't just Twitter, by the way. It was also Facebook. The FBI was holding similar meetings with Facebook, which also, not surprisingly, in fact, as a direct result of those meetings, censored the Hunter Biden story. Watch.
There was a lot of attention on Twitter during the election because of the Hunter Biden laptop story. The New York Post.
Had that too.
Yeah, so you guys censored that as well?
So we took a different path than Twitter. I mean, basically, the background here is the FBI, I think, basically came to us, some folks on our team, and was like, hey, just so you know, like, you should be on high alert. There was we thought that there was a lot of Russian propaganda in the 2016 election. We have it on notice that basically there's about to be some kind of dump of that's similar to that. So just be vigilant.
So this is a Stop the Presses story. The FBI is the largest and most powerful domestic law enforcement agency in the world. It can't become a secret police force. If it does, this is no longer a free country, and it's no better than, say, Russia under Putin or any authoritarian state. It is an authoritarian state by definition if the largest domestic law enforcement agency starts to play in domestic politics. But they are. And we know that, and no one's saying anything about it, and that's very strange. We do know that the Twitter executive who went to those meetings, the meetings with the FBI, was a man called Yoel Roth. Now, if you think about it, it was never clear what Yoel Roth was doing at Twitter in the first place. Yoel Roth had no technical expertise of any kind. He didn't know anything about hacking, foreign affairs, he didn't know anything about Russia. What does he know about? Well, Yoel Roth received a PhD in the study of Grindr, the gay sex hookup app, from a place called UPenn, the University of Pennsylvania, purportedly an Ivy League school you should be impressed by. We're not making this up, by the way. Grindr appears more than 800 times in his research, and UPenn gave him a PhD for that. So whatever you think of that, how did that get Yoel Roth into the position that he occupied at Twitter, where he was in charge of what you were allowed to say and think? Well, the one qualification we know Yoel Roth did have is he does not believe in free speech, period. And he made that very clear in an interview last week.
Babylon Bee, which is what got him to buy the thing, I think. That's the one which was not particularly funny. The Babylon Bee's Man of the Year is Rachel Levine. Not funny.
The targeting and the victimization of the trans community on Twitter is very real, very life-threatening, and extraordinarily serious. We have seen from a number of Twitter accounts, including libs of TikTok notably, that there are orchestrated campaigns that particularly are singling out a group that is already particularly vulnerable within society. Twitter's written policies prohibit misgendering, full stop.
It's so great. It's life-threatening to tell jokes. It's life-threatening. What's interesting about speech codes, always and everywhere, and specifically the speech codes that Yoel Roth has devoted his life over the past several years to upholding, is that they change constantly, and you never know when they change or on what grounds they change. They just change, and you're usually caught in the crossfire, and you're busted for saying something you didn't even know you weren't allowed to say. Probably the greatest example of this is that Yoel Roth himself once attacked trans people on Twitter. He called them trannies. Whoa! Thereby threatening their lives. Quote, "It wouldn't be a trip to New York without at least one big scary tranny." That's an actual tweet from Yoel Roth, the kind of tweet that if you wrote it, he called the FBI. So now Yoel Roth has to pretend to be offended by all of this. Why? Because his purported offense, the terror he feels, gives him a pretext to censor you on behalf of the most powerful people in the world. That's how that works. So people with the most power claim they're defending the people with the least power in order to crush you. That's exactly the way it always works. By the way, Yoel Roth has deleted his old tranny tweets, and now he's just shocked. He's just shocked by the Babylon Bee. Huh. But it's not just Yoel Roth. Vijaya Gadde was his boss. Gadde, according to Matt Taibbi's reporting, oversaw the censorship of the New York Post reporting on the Hunter Biden laptop. And Gadde was later rewarded for that by the Biden administration. For real. The Biden administration appointed the person who effectively allowed Joe Biden to get elected president by censoring criticism of his business deals in which he took money from China. She was rewarded by getting an advisory role on CISA. That would be the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. Ever heard of it? Oh, well, it has a big effect on your life. It's a division of DHS, by the way. It's the censorship arm of the federal government. Now, how can this even exist? Our First Amendment specifically prohibits that. Why is there no court case on this? Why are people standing by and putting up with it? We know that its reach is extensive. New documents revealed in Missouri's ongoing lawsuit against big tech reveal just how aggressive the censorship that CISA practices is. So effectively, they're a hotline that allows the government to pressure the big tech companies to censor political opposition. On October 29, 2020, for example, an official with the Washington Secretary of State's office wrote to CISA, quote, "I wanted to flag 2 tweets with possible misinformation about the election." Misinformation about the election. Now, remember, misinformation is a new word. It's been around the intel world for a long time, but it's never been used in common conversation until recently. And the distinction between misinformation and lying is that misinformation can be true. It doesn't have to be untrue to be censored. So it used to be truth is a defense. If you're telling the truth, you can say it. Not anymore. With mis and disinformation, if I don't like it, if I'm in power, I can censor you. So one of the offending tweets that this political official in Washington State was upset about was a reference to an election dispute in Washington State's 2004 gubernatorial election, which played out in the courts, and ultimately Democrats won that court battle. The tweet read this, quote, "Washington State in 2004, judges ignored the real count and rewarded the Democrats." Another tweet from the same account read simply, "Ballots can appear whenever from whomever." Now, you can agree or disagree with those tweets. They seem true. But in any case, they're opinions. They're a political take. And you see tweets like that all the time on Twitter because this is a free country, or was. But what happened next is shocking. And it's amazing that anyone would defend it. The federal government shut down those opinions. Within minutes, CISA flagged the tweets to several DHS accounts. These people with guns. Then CISA sent the report directly to Twitter. "Please see the report below from Washington," CISA wrote. And the tweets, of course, were censored. The government got a random Twitter user with a small following shut down because they didn't like his or her views on the 2004 election in Washington State because they criticized Democrats. The government. This is not a close call. This is a violation of the First Amendment to the Bill of Rights, to the centerpiece of our Constitution, and it's happening constantly. States reported posts they didn't like, and CISA, an arm of DHS, guys with guns, got Twitter to censor it. Kentucky's Secretary of State did this all the time. The documents show that. So did Colorado's. In fact, Colorado reported several political parody accounts to DHS, which then alerted Twitter, and all of them were pulled off. They were all parodies, by the way. Even if they weren't parodies, it doesn't matter, but they were, in fact, jokes. You're seeing one of them on your screen right now. Smoke weed every day, the account's bio reads, the official, unofficial Twitter account of the state of Colorado. But Twitter took the DHS complaint seriously, why wouldn't they, and censored the accounts. Quote, we will escalate, Twitter wrote. At the beginning of the election cycle in 2021, staffers for the Secretary of State of Arizona, ordered by gubernatorial candidate and then Secretary of State Katie Hobbs, also directed censorship through CISA. Quote, I am flagging this Twitter account for your review, wrote someone on Hobbs' account to the Center for Internet Security. CISA was later CC'd on the email. Why? Well, according to Hobbs' office, the tweets were, quote, an attempt to further undermine confidence in the election institution in Arizona. Okay, so you're not allowed not to have confidence in elections? Really? This is the state where the biggest county took more than a week to count the ballots, and the printers didn't work on election day, though they worked the day before. But you're supposed to have total confidence. In fact, you're commanded to. And if you don't have confidence, you'll be punished. The email concluded, quote, thank you for your consideration in reviewing this matter for action. And of course, Twitter soon censored them. Thank you. We will escalate, Twitter replied. For the 5th time, this isn't just offensive. This is illegal. This is a crime. A crime is being, a very serious crime, a crime against our democracy, not trespassing in the Capitol or gazing upon Nancy Pelosi's desk. Influencing the outcome of elections. It's beyond belief. It's also very common, much more common than anyone thought. This weekend, Elon Musk suggested that Twitter interfered abroad, too. If they do it here, why wouldn't they do it in other countries? Musk suggested they interfered in the Brazilian elections. Quote, I'm seeing a lot of concerning tweets about the recent Brazil election, he tweeted the other day. If those tweets are accurate, it's possible that Twitter personnel gave preference to left-wing candidates. Okay. I mean, it's possible? If that happened, can you imagine the people lecturing you every day about democracy are subverting democracy in foreign countries, in Brazil, probably in Hungary, probably in El Salvador, in any regime that they don't like? Not because those regimes pose a threat to the United States, because they just don't like the cut of their jib. So what we're learning about state interference in democratic elections all over the world has long been suspected. Now it's confirmed. And there's a lot more coming from Matt Taibbi and others. In the meantime, though, tonight we're joined by Kari Lake. As we just told you, we know that her opponent in the governor's race worked with big tech to censor her voters. Kari Lake joins us tonight. Kari Lake, thank you so much for coming on. Did you, I mean, I assume you must have suspected something like this was happening. How do you feel now that it's been confirmed?
Well, nothing surprises me now, to be honest, but this did, I was a little bit surprised. I mean, we saw what happened with Hunter's laptop in 2020. The DNC's behind it, Biden's people are behind it, keeping the narrative away from discussing the disturbing contents of that. So it shouldn't be surprising that states are doing this. And my opponent, who I wanted to recuse herself from the election more than a year ago because of conflict of interest, it wouldn't surprise me if her office was trying to silence people. I mean, we got silenced. At one point, my Twitter page got taken down because they didn't like one of the tweets I put up during the election. It makes me wonder who was behind that. We had to remove a tweet during the election in order to get our ability to communicate with our followers and the people who were supporting us. It is frightening what's happening with Twitter. This is an arm, it's a propaganda arm of our government, and we need to wake up right now and demand that we get some control over what's happening in our government. The FBI, and you know, we're talking about Twitter tonight. Let's talk Facebook. What about TikTok? Right. This thing is going to go so deep that I think people are going to be shocked when they learn the full extent. I can't wait to hear what they were doing when it comes to censoring us on COVID, when people's lives were at risk, when our children were being masked up. Shocking.
And with vaccines. Really quick, how can you have a democracy in a country where the government is suppressing speech? How can that be a democratic country?
I believe it's called fascism, and they're always accusing us of being the fascist one. And, you know, they spent 3 years talking about Russia, the collusion story, and they didn't want to talk about Hunter's laptop. They didn't want to talk about problems with our elections that we discovered in 2020 and we saw repeated in 22. When are we going to have a serious discussion about what's really wrong in this country? We don't have a lot of time left on the clock. And as Twitter said, what was the term they used? We're on it. We're going to get on it right away. Well, we're getting on it in Arizona, and the people have had enough. We're sick of the Katie Hobbs' office and the Secretary of State's office and what they've been up to. And we're going to start fighting back, and we're going to be drawing up some lawsuits in our election because we won't have elections that are run like they're run in third world countries. We have too much to save in this country to allow our elections to be run that way.
Well, Godspeed. I think I would hope all people would agree with that. Kari Lake, great to see you tonight. Thank you.
Thanks.
So as we told you, in 2020, the FBI was all over the social media companies, including Twitter, meeting weekly with Twitter and warning them of a potential hack and leak operation involving Hunter Biden. Then the laptop came out and Twitter censored them, even though the laptop wasn't hacked. And then dozens of Intel officials claimed the laptop was Russian disinformation. Here's Jim Clapper, for example.
How much does the source matter, right? So you hear the story of this laptop. We don't know a lot. We do know that the way that this information is getting out is through Steve Bannon and Rudy Giuliani. How much does the source matter here?
Well, source matters a lot. And the timing matters a lot, I think. And to me, this is just classic textbook Soviet-Russian tradecraft at work.
So they were lying. None of them, including Jim Clapper, has ever apologized. And yet they sit on corporate boards, they're treated like real people, they're invited on television, they subverted a presidential election. They've never been held to account for that. Why? Charlie Hurtis with the Washington Times. He joins us tonight. Charlie, thanks so much for coming on. So here, there are a lot of things we don't fully understand. We don't know exactly what happened. Here's a very cut and dried case of Intel officials subverting an election and then continuing on as if they did nothing wrong. How are they allowed to do that?
Well, they shouldn't be allowed to do it. It is patently unconstitutional. And I guess the biggest takeaway of these new revelations are, we knew that the FBI had worked hand in hand with Democrats and the media to spy on Donald Trump's campaign in 2016 and spread propaganda from the Kremlin to try to destroy the president because they didn't like the president that the American people had picked. They did everything they could to destroy him. But what's kind of interesting here is the degree to which the FBI was pre-positioned before the 2020 election, after having gone on offense and all their offense had failed, to go on pre-position to go after, to protect Joe Biden defensively because they viewed him as their best chance of destroying Donald Trump. They had that laptop, for about a year. We're not sure whether they even looked at it. We now know they clearly did because before the New York Post story even came out, they were beginning the effort to get social media to censor this story and to prevent people from knowing the contents on this laptop. And we're not talking about pornography here. We're talking about a clear strategy by the Biden family to enter corrupt relationships with China and Ukraine.
You just made such a smart point. I just cannot believe I left it out of my script. They had the laptop already. Thank you. Thank you for reminding us that the FBI had the laptop, so of course they knew. Amazing. Charlie Hurt of the Washington Times, great to see you.
Great to see you.
So as you just heard Charlie say, obviously there is a lot of pornography and drug use and prostitution, all that stuff on the laptop, a lot of salacious stuff. But the point, the reason it's actually news and not just a sad chronicle of one man's self-destruction, is because the laptop also contains key information linking Joe Biden to a highly corrupt and illegal money-making scheme. Somehow a lot of people on the left are still denying this. We connect the dots in a two-part series called Biden Inc., which is absolutely worth watching. First part out on Fox Nation tomorrow. Here's what it looks like. So people have been whispering for 2 years that maybe COVID emerged from a lab. Now we know for a fact that it did. Dr. Li Mingyang was one of the very first to say this. Her life was destroyed for saying it, but she's still around, thank God, and she joins us next. By the way, a lot of you seem to have ordered our show's Christmas ornament last year, so this year we decided to do it again. Made in America, by the way. You can get one at TuckerCarlson.com. A group called the EcoHealth Alliance was paid by the U.S. government, supervised by Tony Fauci, to conduct, among other things, experiments on bat coronaviruses in China at the Wuhan lab, the now famous lab in Wuhan. Dr. Andrew Huff is a former VP at EcoHealth Alliance. He's written a new book about his experiences. In that book, he writes this, quote, EcoHealth Alliance and foreign laboratories did not have the adequate control measures in place, ultimately resulting in the lab leak at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. So this looks like a game over kind of admission. It did come from the lab. We can all stop pretending. Yes, it came from the Wuhan lab. This is a guy who worked at EcoHealth Alliance. And yet it's still not clear if Huff is telling the whole story. In September of 2020, the Chinese virologist Li Mengyang came on this show to provide evidence that COVID was in fact engineered in a Chinese military lab. Watch.
From my first report, I can present the solid scientific evidence to our audience that this virus, COVID-19 SARS-CoV-2 virus, actually is not from nature. I work with the top coronavirologists in the world. So together with my experience, I can tell you this is created in the lab.
Dr. Li Mengyang joins us tonight. Doctor, thank you so much.
Hi,
for joining us once again. So you were attacked and dismissed. You feared for your life. You may still fear for your life because you were one of the very first people in this country to note what is now obvious. This was created in a lab. Do you feel vindicated? Are you happy that most people now believe what you're saying?
Hi, Tucker. It's nice to talk with you again. And actually, yes, my evidence get verified and verified again and again. But this is definitely not the end of the game because, this is from the lab and that was from Wuhan. And this was gain-of-function engineered weaponized virus. However, as you see, now the Senate committee, led by the Senator Richard Burr, already published the report that this SARS-CoV-2 COVID-19 virus is most likely the result of research-related incident. Since this is incident, so now they changed the word from accident to incident because this gave us the new direction for the further investigation that whether it was an intentional or accidental incident. And also what I want to tell you is that yes, I have suffered a lot from CCP because they try to silence me, not only in physics, but also in non-physical way. However, based on the confidential sources, my team obtained that there are the People's Liberation Army involved, conducted very well-planned and coordinated operations happened before the outbreak of COVID-19 in Wuhan. And even we managed to got the code name of the operation related to SARS-CoV-2 and also the generals inside leading this operation who actually get promoted now. So this kind of evidence we are going to keep providing to the related staff.
Well, thank you, and I'm just sorry that you weren't taken seriously earlier because it's changed the world. Dr. Li Mengyang, good to see you. So Republicans did, to put it mildly, not as well as expected in the midterm elections. So not surprisingly, Republican voters, by and large, would like new leadership of the party. There is speculation tonight that new leadership may include a very frequent guest on this show, Harmeet Dillon, who joins us next with an announcement.
I'm Trace Gallagher with breaking news from Fox News Channel. Actress Kirstie Alley has died after a short battle with cancer. Her family released the news just moments ago. Alley rose to fame in the early 90s, playing Rebecca Howe in the NBC television series Cheers. Alley was 71 years old. Disgraced attorney Michael Avenatti sentenced by a California judge to 14 years in a federal prison for defrauding clients out of millions of dollars. The judge also ordered him to pay $10 million in restitution. Here he is in 2018 on Tucker Carlson Tonight.
Here's what I know for a fact is that your client is not thriving. And for you to look at me in the eye and say she wants to perform in strip clubs with people throwing stuff at her is insulting to her. People don't do that unless they have no choice, or she just likes it. Is that what you're saying?
Tucker, now you're the defender of my client. You don't know anything
it's
about
pathetic. You're
you don't even know.
her.
That was about his handling of the Stormy Daniels. Back to Tucker.
Republicans didn't do as well in the midterms as expected, and so it's fair to ask, well, whose fault is that? And a lot of people are asking that. You may have seen reports on a potential challenge to the current leadership of the Republican National Committee, and those reports suggest that our friend, frequent guest on the show, Harmeet Dillon, is considering a run against Ronna Romney McDaniel as chair of the RNC. Is that true? Well, no one would know better than Harmeet Dillon herself, chairwoman of the Republican National Lawyers Association, who joins us now. Harmeet, thanks so much for coming on. Is it true that you plan to run for RNC chair?
Well, Tucker, I'm going to announce tonight that actually I am going to run for RNC chair. And the reason is that, to play off of a famous catchphrase, Republicans are tired of losing. And I think that we really need to radically reshape our leadership in order to win. And we can't keep running elections like we did in the 90s and the 2000s. And we really have to modernize to compete with the Democrats, dollar for dollar, in the ways they fundraise, the way they deliver their ballots to the ballot boxes. Our messaging needs to be fresh and positive and not just reactive to news cycles and what the Democrats are doing. And I think that the party needs to realize that the party has become a populist party. The base of the party demands populist messages that speak to them, and not Chamber of Commerce messages, not neocon messages, not warmonger messages. And I'm afraid that the base of our party is not getting what it needs from our leadership. And so after 3 successive rounds of really disappointing results, Tucker, I'm a member of the RNC, and no other member is stepping up to challenge leadership. And our current leadership has never been challenged for the chair job. And I think that challenge and competition is very good. And so I'm hoping to gain the support of grassroots Americans who do not like the direction of the party and its leadership. They need to contact the 168 members of the RNC in their states and territories and tell them that they too want change. And I think that change is popular among the base. I hear from thousands of Americans on a weekly basis about that. They want to see us fighting. Tucker, you know as well as anybody else that I'm a fighter.
Yes,
and I
you
fight
are.
every waking hour of the day, and that's what we need right now. And so that's me. I'm offering to take a giant, step back from my law firm and my nonprofit to do this.
Yeah.
It's a big sacrifice, but I think it's important for our country that I love so much as a first-generation immigrant.
I love it. I love it. I can vouch for your toughness. It's absolutely real and much needed. Godspeed. Harmeet Dillon, we're rooting for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So there were big protests this week across the country against Balenciaga, the fashion house, for promoting child sexualization in its advertisements, which it certainly did. Some of its ads featured kids holding teddy bears in bondage gear. It's not an accident. The CEO of Balenciaga's parent company, a man called Francois-Henri Pinault, also owns an auction house that sold art that sexualizes children. Now, one of the people who was disgusted by all of this is Brittany Aldean. She's the wife of the country singer Jason Aldean, and she joins us tonight. Brittany, thanks so much for coming on.
Hi, thank you, Tucker. Thank you.
There are, I'm not sure some viewers even know this, there are actual protests against Balenciaga's sexualization of children, correct?
Yes, there are. I for one, love fashion. I am super into fashion, but I refuse to represent or wear a brand that has any affiliation with sexual exploitation of children or the sexualization of children. It's disgusting, and what they showed us recently in their recent campaign is pure evil.
Well, it is pure evil. I agree with that. And, fashionable people sneer and, oh, you're taking it too seriously and who cares and no actual child was hurt. Why? I think it's worth taking seriously. Why do you think that it is?
It's absolutely worth taking seriously because every single detail of the photo shoot was meticulously thought out. I've been on photo shoots before. I know that there are weeks of preparation, if not months. This was meticulously thought out. For them to think that it's appropriate to put children in a situation that that we have seen, much less a campaign for their brand, is disgusting. Every single prop, every single book, every single teddy bear, everything was meticulously thought out, regardless if they say it was a mistake or not. It was not a mistake. They have shown us who they are. It's disgusting. It's evil. And the common denominator here is that we have to stand up. We have to fight for our children. This is not political. This is not about religion. The common denominator here is to protect the children at all costs. Everybody should be outraged.
So nicely put, and thank you for saying that about photo shoots. You've been on photo shoots, so their claim that we had no idea. I mean, that's totally absurd,
laughable.
Correct? Yeah,
it's absolutely laughable. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for doing this. You're not embarrassed, and I think it makes a difference when people are honest.
Thank you.
And you are. Brittany Aldean, great to see you tonight. Thank you.
Good to see you. Thank you.
So what we learned from the Twitter files on Friday night, are going to continue to learn, we think, in the coming weeks, is that Twitter wasn't just censoring conservatives. Twitter was, with the help of the U.S. government and the Biden administration, interfering with, trying to rig democratic elections in this country and across the globe, including in the nation of Brazil very recently. We'll speak to someone from Brazil next. So Matt Taibbi's reporting on Friday night proves that Twitter, often at the direction of U.S. government officials, interfered in what the rest of us assumed were free and fair elections in this country, and not just in this country. Elon Musk tweeted the other day, quote, "I've seen a lot of concerning tweets about recent Brazil elections. If those tweets are accurate, it is possible that Twitter personnel gave preference to left-wing candidates." So we know, I mean, you did the research ahead of time that Twitter tampered with the democratic election in Brazil, which is should be a crime. It's certainly immoral. Is there any evidence that the Biden administration or U.S. government agencies were involved?
I haven't studied the involvement of the U.S. government on that. What I can say for sure is that Twitter tampered with the Brazilian elections because they editorialized, for instance, the trending topics in Brazil. The trending topics, which normally would show whatever content is viralizing on Twitter, during the election period was basically heavily tempered to the point that organic trends with over 500,000 mentions were lacking, were completely absent on the trending topics in Brazil. Meanwhile, fresh hashtags out of the Lula's campaign headquarters with less than 50,000 hashtags mentioned would just get on trending topics in a few minutes after they were deployed. More than that, we had this situation, like I was saying, when Musk initially bid for the acquisition of Twitter, we realized that Twitter entered panic mode. And for a day, a lot of the accounts of the right-wing and the conservative movement in Brazil were instantly removed from the shadow ban. So Bolsonaro ended up getting 100,000 followers in a span of a few hours. Accounts from congressmen like Gil Diniz or Caroline Detone or Paulo Eduardo Martins in a day acquired the same number of followers they acquired over 3 years.
We saw something similar here.
And this confirmed to us that there was tampering.
Yes, and I'm ashamed because it is purportedly an American company, and I'm sorry about that has happened to you in Brazil. Rodrigo, thank you for coming on and telling us what you discovered. Appreciate it. Jane Fonda has been studying climate change and has discovered, actually, it's all about her. You'll hear her theory next. Oh, the climate crisis. The climate, it's not natural. It's not like the glaciers. You're causing it. How are you causing that? Well, Jane Fonda has thought a lot about that topic, and here's her conclusion.
If there were no racism, there'd be no climate crisis. If there was no misogyny, there'd be no climate crisis. It's part of a mindset. It's the mindset that looks at a woman and says, nice.
In other words, my ex-husband's caused climate change. In addition to everything else. It's all about her. So great. We appreciate your watching tonight. We'll be back 8 p.m. every weeknight. Here's Sean Hannity.
Bữa kép thứ 10. Bữa kép thứ 15. Bữa kép thứ 20. Bữa kép thứ 25. Hỏng bữa kép thứ 4. Bữa kép thứ 6. Bữa kép thứ 10. Bữa kép thứ 15. Bữa kép thứ 20. Bữa kép thứ 25.